Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Enfermedades, epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todo se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice? ¿Quién explota? ¿Quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hacia dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
Rise up. Rise up. Please. What's good? How y'all doing?
Doing good. I'm doing good. Just doing it one day at a time though.
That's how you gotta do it. That's how you gotta do it.
It sounds like you getting over something, man.
No, it sounds like I'm getting, older, not over something, but older. I feel like the older you get, the more responsibilities that you have, the more stuff you have to juggle.
Yeah, who you telling?
True that.
You got to make sure that you, the older I'm getting, I'm seeing, hey, I got to be more mindful. More mindful is like of myself, my health, what it is I'm doing, where I'm directing my energy, spending my time and energy. Time is precious, man. I think when we're young, we don't appreciate time as much, but the older we get, hopefully, if you're conscious of that. But I think the system, the job of the system is to make sure that you aren't mindful of those things, though, right? Keep you focused on what it is that they want, building their shit up. Forget your health, forget your,
exactly.
How you doing.
Keep you focused on making more money.
Yeah. And we show up in these places in the worst condition, but because we have to be there to survive, colonialism be busting our ass, physically and mentally, spiritually, but we got to keep on showing up, man. That's reactionary suicide, as as Huey P. Newton was saying.
That's right. Yeah, we want to welcome everybody to the Rise Up International Morning Show.
We was getting started already, right? I forgot.
Yeah.
I think Fernando got it. Making sure we remember that part.
Word. We want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for being here with us. Make sure you hit those little buttons down there. Make sure you like. You hit the bell. Make sure you share. And you share. Yeah, share with your friends. Share with your enemies. Please comment. Comment, and we will get back to you. No doubt.
But like the guy who was asking about your song, we got back to him. Remember?
Word, yeah, no doubt. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So how did y'all spend how did you mindfully spend your weekends?
So Saturday we had Curb Fest for political prisoners in Philadelphia. I believe it was the last. Correct me if I'm wrong, Natasha, but I think it was the last Curve Fest of the year.
Wow, one more. Yeah, Houston,
Oh,
October 24th.
All right. See, they came out of nowhere. They came out of nowhere. That's what's up, though.
They've been added to the roster of Curve Fest.
How many cities was it in?
If I can, off the top of my head, I may miss a city or two, but
more or less.
New York, Baltimore, Philly, DC, Atlanta, Houston. That's 6.
Boston,
that's 7. And am I missing any more?
I think that's it. There was none out west, right?
No, next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna see if comrade Isaac can get one popping over there in Vegas, man.
Oh yeah, that would be a good one. Yeah.
There was some folks. I was talking to some folks on Saturday about Jersey, because Jersey been talking about doing one, I think maybe for the last couple of years. So I think they have a few comrades over there that's interested in organizing a Curve Fest. So that could
they're probably all going to Brooklyn right now, but
some of them. I know some folks. New York came down. New York.
New York came.
Shout out to Holla. Those some good folks right there. Holla, the organization, they came down and represented. And it was a great event, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to everybody.
Can you break it down a little bit, man, for some of our listeners that may not know? Over here, some of our listeners, especially over on this side of France or whatever, talk a little bit about what Curve Fest is about.
Because we can get one started in France too, because it's for political prisoners, and wherever you have African resistance, you're going to have political prisoners. We already know that, and so the idea was actually born out of something called Porch Fest. That Africans weren't necessarily organizing. We kind of came in and co-opted it and turned it into something, Porch Fest that is, into something that we can do for political prisoners. When Porch Fest goes on in West Philly, where people, they sort of have party type vibes on their porch around the community, and people go from house to house and sort of just engage in entertainment purposes. I don't think there was anything political about it at all, and so we sort of politicized it and made a Porch Fest into something for political prisoners that we were doing. So people were coming to our designations in the community. We had several designations that they would go to and learn about political prisoners, and we had DJ and everything out there. So that was Porch Fest. And so I believe Russell Maroon Schultz the third and Yane Indigo sort of developed this idea of having a Curve Fest strictly for political prisoners. I don't know which one of them did, because two people didn't come. So I wonder which one I'm gonna ask them. I wonder if they're gonna argue over who started it. But
who started it?
I feel like it was a joint effort.
It was a joint effort.
Here's Natasha bringing the peace. That's what's up. Yeah.
Indeed. So Curve Fest, was birthed out of that. Was 3 years ago, and so we've been having Curve Fest for political prisoners, where the idea is to raise funds to support political prisoners, raise awareness to really engage the community. Talk to the community as they're coming, because we tend to hold them in locations where there's going to be a flow of traffic.
Okay. So is it outside?
Yeah, on the curb.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, on the sidewalk. Like in New York, we had ours on Utica Avenue. And so we were hosted by a health food store called Ujama's Health Food Store. And we just set up right outside of the store. And then we had the block, where we had different things going on the block, engaging people and political prisoners, having performances, music, all around like our struggle as an African people, our struggle as a people within the, settler colonial imperialist state worldwide too. So we had that, and we had a lot of people, and like Akemba said, like flow of traffic of, people going up and down and interacting with them and really kind of getting the neighborhood together. And it's also like a community building exercise as well, to get the community, like he was saying, like to really engage and get the community aware, and even talking about these, like you would even have people walking past and just stop just to listen. We also had speakers. So we had people like Charles Barron, who we had on the other day last week. He was one of the speakers at our Curve Fest this year. We've had Sekou Odinga when he was still alive. We've had Yolo Mutakim. Like we've had a lot of different people, talking about, whether they're youth. And so it's also an intergenerational thing as well, in terms of getting like the youth to also be a part of it and learning from and interacting with elders, and elders interacting with youth. So it's all of that.
Super dope.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
How difficult is it as far as organizing it? As far as I guess you gotta get permits or things like that. How does it work with the police and everything?
So the point is to not have to do that. So the community building part is so that everybody in the community agrees and says, look, yes, we're going to have this, and we all know we're going to have this happening. And so that's one of the things too. So when we partner with the Ujamaa Health Food Store, like we talked about, and then we also have groups within our organizing committee that go around even before the event happens and does community outreach and talks to the different restaurants and barbershops and stores. And our goal is to, like, at the spot that we're at right now, that we've had it in for the last 2 years, is to really build with those businesses, so that people, like we were talking, like Akimba was talking about, people having different things on their porch. So people, different stores that are there, they're so involved that, like, there's different things happening at different stores, and people can go up and down and do all that stuff.
Yeah. So they really can't shut this shit down, because that's the first thing that went through my mind. Like, here, I already know police would try to shut some shit down quick.
It's funny. Like, I laughed when you said that, because I was in Brooklyn for their Curve Fest, and the police walked up to us and asked us, any help and support you guys need, we'll be over here. And we just looked at each other like what? We don't want your help or support. Beat it.
Cool. And I think it also, when we're thinking about it, it helps in building people's awareness of how to do these types of things. Like, what are the local ordinances? What are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? Like, all of that stuff that we don't really know unless we're actually engaged in that kind of way, right? If we're constantly having to go and get permits, okay, fine. But what about doing those things where you're not asking the state for permission, right? Where you're counting on your people.
Yeah, that's the shit. That's the way to go. Yeah.
Agreement with your people. And so I think, like, it's also part of that helps to develop, our own understanding and thinking around organizing and, sovereignty and self-determination and all that other stuff as well. That makes go ahead, Ikemba.
Now, I was gonna say it's a good organizational effort, collective organizational effort too. Even just thinking about it as we're having this conversation with Brooklyn and Philadelphia, and I would assume, like, even in some of the other places, but just speaking from the Brooklyn and Philly experience, there's several organizations that contribute to the organizing of Curve Fest, like organizations who are directly involved, or maybe just giving resources to Curve Fest for political prisoners, because everybody agrees with the mission, the objective, and the mission, and everybody is in alignment with supporting political prisoners. So there's no like ideological conflict when it comes to our political prisoners, and so it's easy for us to come together collectively to see to the success of Curve Fest. You wanted to say something, Natasha?
No, I was just gonna say, just in conjunction with what you're saying, our ideology around political prisoners is free them all, bring them all home, right? And so, Just thinking about like that, the clip that one of the clips that we want to get into is talking, Miss Wilson talking about the psychological effect and how what the psychological effect of having a curb fest is, you know, thinking about how that part of the goal is to change people's minds, right? To help build their minds, to help, you know, give them something that they're not readily given or even, you know about. So I think that's a good way for us to jump into that clip.
Word.
Shay.
History, you could not use that profile for yourself. It would not fit you. I could not explain your behavior in terms of my experience as such, because your behavior and your experience, of course, is unique. Therefore, the European experience is a unique experience. The psychology of Europeans is based on that experience, and consequently, it cannot be used for our people. We have to look in the history of African people for the psychology of African people, you see. So then the psychology is, for instance, take educational psychology. To a great extent, that psychology is built around the white middle-class child. But if you take that psychology and go into the majority of schools in our urban areas, you don't find the white middle-class child there. So you have a teacher who perhaps has been educated in terms of that psychology, running into children or having to deal with a classroom of children. And the child she's been taught to deal with is not even in the classroom to begin with. So, of course, this creates a great disparity in what she's learned, what she has, or he expects to go on in the classroom and what actually occurs, which leads to a good deal of confusion. The other aspect of why we need a black psychology involves the fact that Eurocentric psychology is a part of the Eurocentric and European oppressive mechanism. It is one of the major means by which the European has maintained his domination and subjugation of black people. It is a psychology that has developed to a great extent out of the European colonial experience and still carries those roots. And as a matter of fact, even in this day and age, European psychology is used to manipulate black people, to maintain them in a position of subjugation and so forth. So we have to develop a psychology, a black psychology, that must countermand and counteract this kind of influence of Eurocentric psychology.
How is European psychology used to manipulate and dominate black people?
There are any number of ways that it's used. First of all, it's used to maintain an image of black people, both in Europeans themselves and of black people themselves, the so-called famous inferiority complex. To a great extent, Eurocentric psychology has been used to justify basic white prejudices. So the average white person in the racist American society thinks of blacks, let's say, as so-called innately inferior, say, intellectually. Along comes then their psychology with the so-called sheen of being scientific to justify what is already a common myth. So to that extent, it supports a racist system that exists in the society. As a matter of fact, not only does it do that, it provides various number of categories and labels that are used by the layman as well as by professionals to prevent black children in many ways from gaining positive
What are these labels?
things. Many of the labels, labels such as learning disabled, those labels that we hear a lot about nowadays, hyperactivity, reading disabilities, language deficiencies. As a matter of fact, to a great extent, when you are in a university or college and you go in a course that supposedly deals with the minority child, so-called, it really becomes, to a great extent, a course on labels, you see, disadvantaged children, this kind of thing, culturally deprived children. So what happens quite often, the teacher leaves that kind of course with a series of negative labels so that when that teacher perhaps enters into a classroom, these labels are placed on the children, which lowers her expectation or his expectation about these children and provides a ready excuse for not teaching, you see. In a sense, this labeling business has left the teacher free now to excuse himself or herself from really teaching, because you can immediately make an excuse. Well, this child is not learning because it's from a disadvantaged neighborhood, or it's from a deprived culture, or it's may have a minimal brain damage, or it's hyperactive, and therefore, why bother?
That was deep. That was deep.
So deep. All Fernando could say was,
That was deep, man.
Hey, and I had to second that, you know.
Had to second that.
Absolutely. I mean, this is, you know, Dr. Emerson Wilson, that's one of the, it's I don't like doing it, but I have to, you know, like he's my favorite. Like Malcolm and Dr. Emerson Wilson, those are my favorites, you know.
Okay.
You're allowed to have favorites. It's okay.
Yeah, word. We all do, man, whether we admit it or not.
You're allowed to have favorites.
Yeah, I'll be feeling bad, but yeah, like that piece, you know, that particular is crazy, because I was planning to do when We Charge Colonialism, another chapter of Black on Black violence. I've been covering that for several months. But he talks about this labeling, right, and just creating this image. And in that particular in one of the chapters in the book, he talks about the making of the criminal, of the Black criminal. And I know in this particular video that we looked at, he's speaking about in the classroom, right, the education of our children, and how these colonizers, or those who think like the colonizers, how they interact with our children. But the same thing sort of applies. Like when he's talking about the Black criminal, it sort of justifies the action when they labeled this criminal or perceived to be criminal, because from the enslavement of African people from the very beginning, we was criminalized from the beginning, from the start of the system.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, you don't, like, who else would you put in chains to make slaves? You know, but people that you deem as uncivilized and criminal.
Yeah,
inhumane. Inhumane. Yeah, the dehumanization. Yeah, exactly, and that's what he talks about. So even after the ending of chattel slavery, right? What they say in the 13th Amendment, that slavery is abolished except for the what is it? Punishment for a crime.
Yes. Yep.
And so, you know, slavery is justified for what they deem to be who they deem to be criminal. But yeah, you know, creating this image, it takes the onus off of those people who are creating the problems in the first place, who, you know, the colonizer, who colonial system is creating all of the social ills and social issues that Black people are faced with every day. And so you can see the difference in those people who come with a Black psychology, or who are African-centered in their approach, when they're looking to dismantle those systems that are creating the problems, than those who go through their education system and develop the white psychology, where it's not the oppressor, it's not those who are dominating you that is the problem. It's something about you personally that you need to fix, right? You need to adjust to this. You need to become more white.
You know? That's what it is. And to get better means to be more white, to do what
more Eurocentric.
Because that's culture. And this is making me even think about you know, Patricia Collins, and she talks about this in Black Feminist Thought, though, where you know, sort of this binary thinking, right? Because they're cultured. If you're not, you know, behaving like the white cultural civilized person, you know, then you are uncivilized. And Africans, who are the opposite of the European, are, you know, living in sort of their natural state, which is looked at as being uncivilized and savage, right? You have to become more cultured and white. But yeah.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were gonna say something, Fernando?
Yeah, I was gonna say, but you can go ahead if you want.
You can go first.
Yeah, okay. I was just gonna say this my bad. This makes me think of, when he speaks about that, it makes me think of, with our organization, the Pan African League of Moja, we organize once a year we do the day of the African and Afro descendant children, right? Where we center our children, you know what I'm saying? And we'll have like storytelling for children. We have like, different a bunch of things like just centered around children, how to, raise our children in a Pan-African way and etc. So we had this one brother who spoke to us about, he actually writes children's books, right? And he was talking and he was saying this past summer, he was saying how we tend to forget our children when it comes to our struggle, because we're always focused on primarily on us, on grown-ups, you know what I mean? And he was saying how the importance of like children's books, etc. And he was saying how, like, psychologically and ideologically, by the time the child is around 4 or 5, if we're not, developing his thoughts, etc., that's it. He's gonna be Eurocentric. You know what I'm saying? Like he just barely got into school. It's already just because of everything, I'm obviously I'm talking about us living in the West, us living in in the Western Hemisphere.
I mean, I would also, sorry, just to add to what you were saying, but I would also say that it's not even us just living in the West, because we know that Western media is also sent out to every place.
You're right. You're right.
For that as the standard of what we should be showing.
I agree. Kids. It is global, and our people are also colonized on the continent and everywhere else mentally too. So you're right. It is global. It is global. But yeah. Just I thought that was super interesting, and it made me think about that. Like sometimes we think, oh yeah, like it can wait, or when they grow up they'll learn about this or that. But really, our children, like early, they're like sponges, and they'll grasp everything, and they'll feel like this is the right way to do things, and all of that. And it has to do with exactly what Dr. Emerson Wilson was talking about, the psychology, like it runs deep, and so yeah, that made me think about that,
Yeah, no, definitely. I 100% agree with you. I think it's also timely, thinking about children going into school. We're in school mode. I don't know when they start going back to school, and how like the school system works necessarily in France, but like, we're into the second month of school here. Some people within the US, you're into the third month of school if you started in August. Yeah. And a lot of what Dr. Amos Wilson is talking about is still prevalent when we're thinking about our children going into these public schools. And one of the reasons why, Malcolm said only a fool would have his child educated by this system, and how when you send your child to school, when they get home, when you send your child to school as a Black person, when they get home, there's a lot of stuff that you have to ask questions about. If they're going to public school, things you have to help them unlearn that they learned in school. So it's a constant battle. Like the way that we have to deal with education as Black people within the United States and within around the world is a lot more cumbersome than, your white people, who these schools, these Eurocentric schools are made for. And like you were saying, Fernando, they've gotten us to also believe, just like, when Amos Wilson is talking about labels and the way that they continue to use psychology to make Black people have these same ideas, or the ideas that they want Black people to have. And it made me remember the Dr. Wade Noble's quote about the ability, like how power is the ability to define reality, right? Mm-hmm. And then to have others respond to it, to that definition as if it were their own, so that all of these things they're putting out there, we take them up as our own. They tell you, oh, it doesn't matter, your child is, when they, like you were saying, your child, oh, just wait until they're, in 7 years old, whatever. But we even know that when we look back at our different African cultures, that they understand. And even if you go to, I would say, like, if you know, at least to some of the parts of Africa I've been to, like, you'll see children that are much more mature and doing a lot more stuff than our children, right? Where they would tell us, oh no, that child's too young for that. Oh no, they don't do that at that age. But when we look back into, and we even look now into our, you know, different African cultural practices, we understood that raising a child is the act of raising an adult. You don't wait for them to become 7 or 8 for you to start to teach them the things that they need to do to know, right? You start that as soon as they're born. You got to be very careful, like when we were talking about, and what you were talking about, Fernando, in terms of, you know, a lot of the times thinking about ourselves and less about our children. If we're watching what we eat, not just you know, in terms of food and, you know, thinking about, oh, what do we want to watch? No, you have to be thinking about that child. What is it that you're having them ingest in terms of food? What is it that you're giving them in terms of what they're listening to or what they're watching? Like, those things are very important. Don't just sit them in front of the, you know, computer or the TV and, you know, show them, you know, all of these different shows and cartoons and people speaking and teaching them things that are not really putting into them, you know, a foundation of who they are, their history, their culture, what's important, right? And so I think, like, what he was saying is very important. I think that we take it very lightly, that we are being water upon, and that our reality is being defined by someone else, and that we're taking up that reality and living in it. And then what happened? Then our children start to become something that we didn't want, but we didn't realize. But you're not realizing that you weren't training them to become what you want. It's like, you know, when they say we can be unorganized if we want, but they're going to be organizing you. You're
absolutely
way. And so they're going to organize and raise your child either way. Either you're doing it and you're being intentional about that, or they will do it and be intentional about that because they already have set up the mechanisms for it.
No, absolutely. I think, like, what happens is this is how they develop this false consciousness. And, you know, Dr. Davidson Wilson, he has a falsification of the African, you know, consciousness, which this is what he spoke about in his video is the process of doing that, of developing this false consciousness, because now, as he mentioned, there's sort of like two things that's happening, you know, I feel simultaneously, where you have these colonizers and colonizer-minded people who come into these classrooms, and they're treating African children like European children with black skin, you know, but at least, like, as far as like how they plan to educate them and develop them. And so you have some of those children who are African, because they're being treated like European and black skin, they become European, they become colonizer minded, right? Develop it as Nathan Ware, you know, talked about Anglo-Saxon, a black Anglo-Saxon. They're creating black Anglo-Saxons in these classrooms. But, you know, and then, you know, the other thing is that's happening is you have this falsification, right? And some people who latch on to that, but also, you know, people who resist that, they become, you know, marginalized and sort of put to the side. So there's an attack on our children in so ways. So when we look at those who are being undereducated, there's those who are going to be educated to the point where they work against their own interests, and those who don't receive the proper education and don't become, you know, so because they don't understand that they should be resisting against the system, they start to become adopt. I'll mention again, like what Huey P. Newton talked about, they become reactionary. You know, that's how reactionary suicide takes place. You know, instead of, you know, resisting, they're resisting, but they're, you know, not resisting to overturn the system, right? And they're sort of just like responding to the system in a reactionary way. And then there was something that you said, Natasha, that made me think about something. Was it define the reality? But I think damn, I lost my train of thought. that fast.
It's okay. We could jump to Fernando's story while you think about it. Hopefully, right. When we talk about it, we can jump back to it. Go ahead, Fernando.
All right. Let's jump to this story. So Cuba, okay, there's this new story here. This is from yesterday, so this is brand new. So Cuba, to Putin, it says, let us join BRICS club. So Cuba wants to join BRICS now, right? So just to let you all know, Cuba right now, in Cuba, the situation is complicated. Is the situation is difficult. We know what's going on with the blockade, with the embargo, but there's a lot going on in Cuba, right? So right now, the main source of income for the country for a little while has been tourism, but the truth is tourism is down, and the people are struggling. Most people are able to do all right if they have family that lives overseas, and sometimes they send them money. But unfortunately, most people that have family overseas are the white Cubans, and the Afro Cubans are having it tough, right? So this article here shows that obviously they're looking to, I guess, better the economic situation in Cuba, and they want to join BRICS. So it says Cuba asked to join BRICS group of emerging economies. Foreign Minister Carlos Miguel Pereira announced on Tuesday. Cuba has officially requested its incorporation into BRICS as a partner country through a letter of the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, who holds the presidency of the group, which is consolidating as a key player in global geopolitics and hope for the countries of the South, Pereira said on X. Pereira's overtures to Putin come 2 weeks before BRICS members meet at the bloc's annual summit, which is scheduled for October 22nd through the 24th in the Russian city of Kazan. The Caribbean countries' bid to join the bloc arrived shortly after Azerbaijan confirmed it is also pushing for membership, following a meeting between Putin and Azerbaijan's president Ilham Aliyev. Membership of BRICS is invitation only, and multiple countries were given the chance to join at the start of this year, including Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Argentina also received an invitation, but said it won't join. BRICS was founded in 2009 to foster closer ties among Russia, China, India, and Brazil, and now comprises 9 members. It is becoming a geopolitical and economic rival to the Western bloc of G7 countries. Okay, so the 9 countries that are officially now in are Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates. Okay.
Yeah, so that's heavy.
Yeah, that is pretty heavy. The G7 is, I think the G7 countries are kind of shook with this whole thing, but but unfortunately, there are, I mean, it is what it is. It's about foreign investment. BRICS is about foreign investment. It's still, it's not a revolutionary organization, let's just say, to say the least. But yeah, so I don't know. What y'all think about Cuba joining?
I think it's interesting because, like, when we think about the G7, right? We have Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, and the United States. And that is like key, Western and countries that we can think about, right? Those global powers, if what people would say, or global colonial powers. And when you look at the G, not the G, but the BRICS, you have some of the countries that were former colonies that we're thinking about. You also have ones that aren't, like Ethiopia. Ethiopia was never colonized, and so I think it's interesting. I think Cuba is moving in a way that is thinking about how to best support the people in a way, and not kind of like sell out their people in a sense. And I think also the point that you made about the point that you brought up about tourism. And I think that the way that tourism has come to lock up, but like also chain the hands of nations, right? Like those in Africa, in the Caribbean, and South America that are not European nations, where you depend on it in the way that so you're depending on something that also negatively impacts your country. Because when we think about Cuba and what they were trying to do, right, how you have all of these North American corporations that were trying to go in and buy up so much of Cuba, right, and have their corporations there, in the same way that they were able to get it done in some of these other Caribbean countries, and Cuba said, no, that's enough, we're not going to do that. I think it's like also an important thing to think about tourism. I think we don't think about tourism enough, and how detrimental it is, as much as, and how these countries should not have to depend on tourism for the livelihood, for the sustenance of their people, because tourism is so detrimental. Most tourists, they want to go to these countries and experience the European countries in countries that are non-European, right? They want to go to, what do you call them? Resorts where they've, you have these foreign companies that have brought up land and don't allow the people to access the water and access the things that are there. And how, in a lot of places, when you see, places that are tourist destinations, how are the people living?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So and I think that it's a very timely kind of thing, especially like, why they're looking toward it, toward doing that, in terms of thinking about that, and us also rethinking when people talk a lot about climate change and, making the change, like, saving the planet and saving but yet a lot of the practices that make, a country like Cuba have to then say, like, okay, well, we're probably going to have to, join the BRICS. These practices are detrimental to the environment and the people, and they don't want to stop those. But yet you got to go buy 10. You got to pay 10 cents for your for your bag or something like that. So I just think, like, those are the things that come to mind when I think about that. I think that is something interesting to continue to watch and learn more.
Yeah, we got to follow up. I mean, it's not like weird or anything, because obviously, Cuba has a relationship with Russia, and Russia is at the head of this, but it's still interesting. We have to, like you said, we have to keep an eye on it. But what do you think, Kim?
No, I think both of y'all raised great points. You had mentioned Cuba looking out for their people, right? The Cuban leadership, which makes sense. It made me think about in the past, during the colonial period and post-colonial period, where you had leaders looking to Russia for support, whether they were communists or not, but it was whether they were in opposition to American imperialism or just looking to stay neutral. They went to whoever would support them, whoever would help them. So there's a history of, Patrice Lumumba, Fidel Castro, just to name, two of a few people who did that, made that decision. I'm, looking at this as a practical move, because I think you mentioned as far as like what BRICS represents, because this isn't we're not gonna fool ourselves into thinking that this is a revolutionary move,
right.
creating, but it is to balance the power, right? Balance power between the West and the underdeveloped world, right? And Russia and China, who has their interests. I wouldn't consider them part of the underdeveloped world, but
and
also
and United Arab Emirates.
Oh my Lord! Oh man!
Yeah,
Dang, that's a.
But they got in. They got in not too long ago, I believe, right? So it's
that deserves a whole nother conversation.
That's all hour.
Yeah. That you could tell, like that kind of got me a little tight. I already know what they about. Yeah, we see what they doing all throughout Africa. But BRICS, BRICS started off with just Brazil, what was it? Brazil, China, India, and Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Right?
Yep.
It was just BRIC, those four nations, and so they brought in an African nation, which was South Africa, began to expand. But but they were inspired to form this group out of, I believe it was some economist. I could be wrong. It was like an American economist or someone who, looked at them in the early 2000s, these nations, and looked at them as like the future. Like, these are emerging economies. This is the future right here. And so, as far as if you want to do any investment, these are the places that you should be looking at. And they sort of like took that and ran with it, right? And formed this counter to the G7. But I know, I don't want to belabor this, but I think Cuba, definitely has to do what they need to do to counter what the U.S. has been doing to Cuba with the embargo and just that history, right? Yeah. So, this is kiss my ass, America, and we going.
Yeah.
I mean, take our talents, our talents somewhere else, sort of thing. Yeah.
There's definitely, that's something that you have to definitely look into, and we have to see how it rolls. Yeah, definitely, there's a lot of work to be done internally too in Cuba, obviously, but that's also another, that's also another conversation.
Our show.
yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. But for sure.
Yeah, no, I definitely think, just to add one thing before we move to our another clip that we wanted to share. I think too that one of the things that we're thinking that we, especially those of us in the Western part of the world, are thinking about is like strategically, right? How do you move strategically on the way toward liberation, right? When we had Charles Barron on, he talked about how, doing the vote, that's not liberation. That is a tool that we use, right? That's a strategy in a sense that, we could use on our way toward there. Don't get comfortable and think like, do this, like, oh yeah. And also don't get comfortable and think like, just because you vote, that's it. So I think like what Kimber was saying, like, they're making a particular move. And I think it's also, thinking about what are the particular moves that you do within the time and the space that you're in to be able to maneuver toward, a position that is going to help you get further, toward, the ultimate liberation that you're after.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, we need to use every tool we can,
and not get it twisted when you use those tools.
Word. Yeah. Because it's war on all fronts.
Exactly.
So to go back to the psychology earlier, it's war on all fronts. So we need to be up with that. All right, we're gonna go to another quick Black Power break.
This is Black Power Media. Rise up.
Rise up.
Well, I think that the real question is that people are not clear on capitalism because capitalism is a very vicious system, but what it does is it embroideries its viciousness with all sorts of elusive terms. For example, many of us would support capitalism because we actually believe that in a capitalist system, there's a chance for us to get the same amount of money as Rockefeller gets, because we're told that under capitalism there is equality of opportunity. So that we feel that if this year we didn't make as much as Rockefeller made, then we got to work a little bit harder, and next year we're going to make it. But if we carefully examine a capitalist system, we will see that it's based on exploitation, because the viciousness of capitalism, and the reason why once black people examined we can never be for it, is that under a capitalist system, the fruits of those who labor are enjoyed by somebody else. That is, those who do the laboring, the fruits of their labor, they don't enjoy it. As a matter of fact, we could say under capitalism that the fruits of the labor of the toiling masses are enjoyed by those who do not labor. And again, as black people, we have clear examples of it. If we were to get the fruits of our labor from slavery, just from slavery, all we got to do is go to Nixon and say, hey, look, you give us the fruits of our labor from slavery and we forget the score. We would be the richest people in the country, again, because under capitalism, the individual exploits the labor of the people. Now, people get confused because this is a capitalist system and it's a developed system. It's a technological system. So they combine capitalism with technology and development, and they think that there is no other possible way to develop this rapid terms of development without going through the capitalist route. But certainly we have examples that show the opposite of that. China is a clear example of that. Cuba is, North Korea, North Vietnam. These countries certainly in Africa, where countries have chosen the socialist path, such as Tanzania, Guinea, Congo, Brazzaville, Algeria, we see that there is another way to develop and get the same type of things that we have under the capitalist system, but in a system that does not exploit each other, where all of us work and the fruits of our labor are divided evenly. Let me show you how backward capitalism is. It's a backward system. We could make two statements about capitalism to show how backward it is. About America. America is a capitalist country. It's thoroughly capitalist. It's an imperialist country. But we could say that, number one, America is the most technologically advanced country in the world. And that's an undeniable fact. It's a truism. It's a truism. America is the most scientifically developed country in the world. And right under that, we could say a second fact, which will show you how backward America is. We could say that America, in 1945, made for her people better cars than she does in 1973. And if you analyze this, you'll see how vicious the system is, because here's America with its great technological skills, its great scientific ability, and rather than making a safe car for people that will last 20 years, which they can do with the scientific knowledge that's at their fingertip, they rather take this knowledge and build a car which will break down every 2 years, so you're forced to buy another car. Thus, you see, under capitalism, what they do is they take their scientific skills, and rather than using it for the benefit of the people, they use it to further exploit the people. And certainly this type of system is too backward.
I think Nelson.
Make it plain.
That's fire. That's fire.
I'm gonna take a page out of Kimba's book. You know, Kwame Ture, he's one of my favorites.
There you go. Hey, I enjoy. He makes it real plain and straight to the point.
Yeah, for sure. Now he's definitely like top 5, maybe top 3. I wrote
top 5 dead or alive.
Right? Yeah. No. Let's normalize that one. Right? Having your revolutionary top 5 dead or alive.
Right.
Always a rap.
No doubt. Top 5 dead or alive. Let's get into it.
Revolutionary top 5 dead or alive.
That's
we gotta come up with that list and spread it around, y'all.
Yeah, we should do that.
Hey,
we're gonna tell all the comrades to get theirs for the next show, man.
And actually,
I think for Friday's show, probably Friday we're all on. I think we might all be on Friday.
And in the chat, everybody in the chat, put your top 5 that are alive.
Top 5 that are alive, everybody.
I'm like, yo, Natasha, you on to something right now.
Word up.
Because what should come, Kwame Ture, he's the, I write poetry. I wrote a poem about Kwame Ture. He's the only person I wrote, that's how much inspiration he gave me. And Ready for when I read Ready for Revolution many moons ago, right? That book, I remember reading that and I was like, yo, this, because the autobiography of Malcolm X, that was my book. That was the thing that had put me on the path that I'm on right now. And that was my favorite book. When I read Ready for Revolution, I was like, yo, this show better than the autobiography. I ain't even go for it. I was like, this book right here, yeah. Yo,
Man,
it's a great history document, man.
listen, when he speaks about, like, still to this day, there are so many things in our society that are made to break, that are made for us to consume more. You know what I mean? And that some people don't realize how insane that is. You know what I'm saying? They're making things when they could make lots of things to just last, in order for us to consume less, which would hurt the planet less and would require less labor. But no, we're gonna consume more and more and more. So we want to create more, extract more resource, and make sure people are consuming more and more and more. So even though we have the technology to do things more efficiently, no, you're gonna use this technology to make sure we consume more, and we make it, and the lead,
all for profit.
For profit, yeah.
And for profits to do what? To create more military machines, for profits to create, bigger, huge houses where only a few people live in them, and while you got tons of homelessness going on, like,
that's crazy, man. Listen, I did the research. Speaking about that real quick, I did the research in the city where I live here in Rennes, right? So there was, as of, I believe, last year, there was 2,000, an average of 2,000 homeless people in the city, right? And it was 2,500 empty apartments in the city.
wow.
That's the kind of society we live in.
Just like New York too. Tons, especially when we think about tons of New York City in general. So much empty housing.
Yeah.
I would have to get the numbers in particular too, while you have so many people that are homeless within New York City.
Yeah. The numbers, I don't have the numbers on hand right now, but we're talking about like tens of thousands.
It's a backward system. Like he said, it's a backward system.
System. Exactly. And it's all because, like, even like he was saying, going back to even if we think about how the country was built on, the use of other people's labor, on our labor in particular as African people, so that others can enjoy the profits of that, right? So others can enjoy the fruits of that. And today, it's still the same old thing. And the planned obsolescence of everything is nuts.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
headphone is acting up.
Who got to mute their background?
I don't know.
Kimba. That's why he muted.
Comrade Kimba's like mute. Word.
Oh man,
it's so good. Oh man, but yeah, Kwame Ture on point as always.
Yes, that's a clip we got to run back again.
We got to run it back, and I actually want to do I want to get some Spanish subtitle for that so I can share it with my Spanish speaking community, in our program, our Pan-Africanist program that we have, Habana Negra, because that's a good one. Because a lot of people got it twisted about capitalism. A lot of people still believe to this day. I mean, the propaganda machine is huge, but a lot of people still believe to this day, like, oh, I'm not working hard enough. That's why I'm poor. Oh, I gotta work harder. That's not good. I'm not doing good. I gotta read the books.
Hey, were you coming home with 3 hours left of your day before you could go to sleep and wake up the next day and go to work, but you're not working hard enough, right?
You're like, listen, I gotta read these books. They read these, they write these books about how to become a millionaire and all this crazy shit. And so
and they don't tell you that, all of the what's the word I'm looking for? All of the oppression and all of the what's the word? It starts with an E. I'm blanking. When they take advantage of you, basically, exploitation.
Yeah.
Tell you all of the exploitation that they're actually doing to become millionaires. They just pretend like, oh, hey, we, and that, they're even the head start that they got.
But you know what? It also, in order for our people to also understand it, we have to go back also to redefining, what we see as success, things like that, for example, redefining success, redefining what it is to live a good life, redefining what's truly important to us. You know what I'm saying? Because we're still using definitions, we're still using Western definitions, you know what I'm saying?
And we're still caught up in the reality that they've painted for us in terms of what success is supposed to be, and the way that they make us look down upon what actual, other societies and cultures' ideas of success, right? They make you look down upon it and think this one is the best idea of success, while the ones who are in the West, especially when we think about America, you have the highest stress rates, you have, a high obesity, you have like high, all of these different health ailments, like all anxiety, like all of that. But yet this is the model, that should be replicated.
The depression levels are crazy. Like, to go back to what Kwame Ture was saying, and how it's a backward system. Like, if you're supposed to have all the technology and all the means to make a society do better, then people aren't supposed to be totally depressed. You know what I mean? Like, the depression is crazy out here in the West. Like, we see it every day. It keeps rising and rising and rising. And
people and there shouldn't be a rise in suicide. There's that too. So I think these are all of the side effects of capitalism that people don't often think about. But we're gonna thank y'all for joining us today. Thank you, Akimba, for being here. I know he had to
Akimba had to slide out real quick, you know what I mean? But
but thanks for being here with us. Got anything else to say, Fernando?
Just shout out to Kalanji, shout out to Buna, shout out to Isaac, and we appreciate y'all for checking us out. Go to blackpowermedia.org, get the new Afropic magazine, and that's about it. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you check us out tomorrow morning and share this video.
And make sure to also check out the show that happens later today, where you have Professor Griff coming on with On the Masses at 12. And then you have Frank and Abdul Haq from the Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition doing their podcast at 1 p.m. About political prisoners. So there's a lot to check out, y'all. So rise up.
Rise up.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one. Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed. On my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull, then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces when it's on the field. Feeble and foolish, what tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution, it's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Well, my inner me, really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. Like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution, it's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution, where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy.